10 Unsolved Mysterious Viking Discoveries. Norway and Denmark are famed for their Viking history. Vikings traded, earned revenues, and conquered new lands using ships and fleets. Vikings are often portrayed as bloodthirsty, unwashed, uncivilized masses rampaging and pillaging, but archaeological finds have made us take a fresh look at this entire culture. Surprisingly, many of the tall tales we believe to be true may actually be true. Here are 10 unsolved mysterious Viking discoveries. Number 10. Prehistoric Arrow Bonanza. On the Longfone Ice Patch in Norway, a well-known ancient Viking hunting ground, archaeologists discovered 68 arrows dating back 6,000 years in November 2020. The discovery was the first of its kind for a frozen archaeological site. Researchers found reindeer bones and antlers at Longfone, in addition to the arrows. As archaeologists learned about our past through frozen artifacts, ice is great for preserving them. It's also possible for ice melting and changes in ice coverage over time to displace items, meaning that they can sometimes be found far from where they were lost. As time went on, the oldest arrows were significantly damaged by exposure to the elements during seasonal melting. Number 9. Viking Burials. In Viking times, warriors were sent on a final journey in a ship set on fire as part of their burial ceremony. It wasn't always the case, however, as a recent discovery of a Viking chieftain buried in a remote Scottish Highland peninsula proved. It was the final resting place of a Viking who lived a pretty incredible life of travel in the 10th century, as modern archaeologists say. The weapons he carried, along with a drinking horn, a whetstone, and a pin from Ireland, were buried with him. Only the iron pieces remained of the weapons, as the wood had long since rotted. In addition to the soil impressions and iron rivets left by the Viking boats, which had long rotted, he was buried in a typical Viking grave, though the burial process was reserved for the most revered of men. It's unclear just what the man was. Number 7. Teeth filing. The Vikings took body modification to whole new levels of pain, which we knew isn't a new idea. 2009, Viking warriors were buried in a mass grave in Dorset, England. Archaeologists at Oxford University who studied the remains found something incredibly strange. Their teeth had been filed into enamel with incredible precision. It's believed these intricate and carefully executed patterns were done by a craftsman skilled in filing. Attempting this process on oneself is not only too difficult, it would also be very painful. In the Viking cemetery located at Koparsvik, Gotland, a large number of teeth with similar markings were found. In the 10th century, the practice took off, and people had the freedom to choose the type of etching. A few upper front teeth only have 1 or 2 marks dug into them, while others have 4 or more. As to why it was done, it's unclear whether it was done to intimidate, show how capable a fighter the person was, or for any other reason. Number 6. Viking Longhouse from the 9th century. Vikings used longhouses as communal houses during the Viking Age. During the summer of 2020, archaeologists discovered a 40-meter longhouse in Iceland. The halls could reach up to 75 meters in length and 6 meters in width, with turf and thatch covering them. A lavish trove of treasures was also discovered, including ornamental beads, rings, and weights, as well as coins of the Roman and Middle Eastern cultures. Moreover, the hoard contained hacked silver, which are pieces of silver that had been cut, bent, and hacked into smaller bits that was used as currency by the Vikings. The lavish house would have been the home of Vikings who traded whale and seal meat along with animal hides in order to acquire these goods. An archaeologist discovered a mysterious artifact after further investigation. Between the longhouse that was evacuated, another was buried. In comparison to the younger longhouse on top, this second one was slightly larger. As part of the transition into permanent settlement, scientists believe the younger longhouse was built above the ruins of the older structure. The secondary discovery was even more fascinating since it was dated back to the 9th century, a century before Vikings were thought to have settled on the island. Researchers are now re-examining what they previously thought about Vikings' arrival in Iceland in light of the discovery of this new longhouse. Oh, and before we continue, to fuel your curiosity, please don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos about this. And now let's get back to it. Number 5. Viking Trade Route. It has been discovered that the old Viking trade route was discovered inside yet another ice patch containing thousands of artifacts. As a result of the rapid melting of the land marine ice patch, artifacts dating from around 300 to 1500 AD have been revealed, including broken sleds and tools and other evidence of daily life. It was the mountain pass that was used by settlers and farmers to move between their settlements that was the site of archaeological finds in the land marine ice patch in Norway. Snow would have covered a large number of items they left behind during this journey, including horseshoes, kitchen tools, and clothing garments. These snow-covered objects have been preserved for thousands of years thanks to the ice that formed the green ice patch. Number 4. The Elfberts Swords. Among our ancestors' most perfect swords, these were forged between 800 and 1000 AD. Comparatively to other swords created around the world, several believe that these Viking swords were endowed with mystical properties due to their high-quality materials. A sword of this type was rumored to be wielded by King Arthur when describing the creation of Excalibur, and they're known as Elfberts Swords. Nowadays, we realize that Elfberts Swords aren't just legends. Real weapons of this sort were incredibly rare to find, and they were seen as the most expensive and rare weapons in the world. As a result, they are free of any material imperfections. In comparison with other swords of their era, Elfberts swords contain roughly 3 times more carbon for reasons that are not entirely understood, and contain no impurities. Because Elfberts swords contained higher traces of carbon, they were extremely strong and lightweight, compared to other swords during their time. As a result of carbon at the right levels, the sword is not too soft or brittle. To produce a sword of this caliber, it's believed that advanced technologies and techniques would have been needed, as well as a mysticism-driven era in order to produce such a strong metal that was stronger, lighter, and more flexible than any weapon at the time. Number 3. Sunstones. Apparently the Vikings were such incredible sailors that no matter what the weather, they could always find the sun and navigated by it. Intriguing new discoveries suggest that this might be the case, even though it seems unlikely. All you have to do is observe how sunlight reacts when it strikes a stone called Icelandic spar. Depending on when the sun is positioned, the crystal reacts differently when held up to the light. Viking navigators could use the same technique on cloudy days by carefully observing how the crystal reacts to the sun when it's visible. The Icelandic spar depolarizes the light it contacts. By moving it away from the light after holding it up to, Heidegger's brush appears briefly. During this time, the light becomes a yellow line pointing directly at the sun. Despite cloudy days, it is accurate to 1 degree. While magnetic compasses were well known at the time, Icelandic spars are thought to still have been useful, especially since other magnetic objects wouldn't interfere. Number 2. An inside-out boat. The Norwegian University of Science and Technology unearthed an unsolved Viking boat grave in 2019. It was unusual for a boat grave to be found during Viking times. During the period 850 to 900 AD, a woman who died on the farm, now known as Skiet ad Binjura, in central Norway, was buried in a boat grave. Her boat was filled with cow heads, shell-shaped brooches, jewelry, and other objects. It wasn't the burial of the boat itself that was unusual, but the fact that the woman's burial boat was buried inside the boat of another individual. Upon excavating the second boat, the team discovered that it contained a man's body buried with weapons. Using a radiocarbon dating method, the team was able to determine that the burial took place some 100 years before the woman died. The reason for their burial together is unknown. However, in order to shed more light on this mystery find, researchers hope to gather some DNA evidence from these people to shed more light on why they may have been buried. Number 1. Viking Fortresses. Denmark's island of Zealand was discovered by archaeologists in 2014. This 10th century fortress is large, measuring 165 meters across. It's the first time in 60 years that a new fortress named Balo Borgring has been discovered, which scientists thought was an end to the search of ancient fortresses. A total of 6 Trelleborg fortresses can be found throughout Denmark and Sweden. Vikings were capable of creating magnificent fortresses, as demonstrated by these Trelleborgs. Known as the Ring Fortress of Zealand, the fortress was ordered by King Harald Bluetooth in 980 AD. There were 4 entrances to the fortress, all of which were surrounded by wooden gates that presumably burned down in battle. Thanks to advances in technology, this new discovery has been made possible. Gradiometry was used by the archaeologists to uncover their findings. A magnetic field measurement is made in the soil using this technique. In order to detect where humans have altered the Earth in the past, researchers can compare variations in the magnetic field from place to place. Which of these unsolved discoveries blew your mind? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and click on the next video you see on your screen to know more about different ancient discoveries.